Namaskar everybody and welcome to day 7 of our Dhanurmasa Satsang. Lakshminatha Samarambham Nathayamunamadhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Yo Nityamachyutapadambuja Yukma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadgurur Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindho Ramanujasya Charanam Sharanam Prapadye आपदामपहर्तारं दातारं सर्वसम्पदां लोकाभिरामं श्रीरामं भूयो भूयो नमाम्यहम् यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारी परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकम् कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम् वेदवेद्ये परे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदप्राचेत सादासीद् साक्षात् रामायणात्मना. So in yesterday's satsang, we had seen how Valmiki Rishi gave instructions and accordingly obeying him, Rama and Lakshmana killed Tataka. So now after Tataka Vadha was done, then as they proceeded further on their journey, the very first thing that Vishwamitra Rishi did was he gave the knowledge of many divine astras, shastras to Rama. Along with that, he also taught Rama how to overcome the effect of astras which other people are using against him. So, like this, here in fact, it is told that actually the event of Tataka Vadha was like a kind of test for Rama. So, Vishwamitra Rishi wanted to see what would be Rama's attitude. And when he unhesitatingly did Agnya Palan of what Rishi had told, when he obeyed the Guru without any doubts in his mind, then the Rishi saw it fit to give the knowledge of all these Divya Astras to to Rama. Now, after this, they continued on their journey and they reached finally the ashrama of Vishwamitra Muni, which is Siddhashrama. And that is where the yajna had to be performed. Now, here one thing we need to remember is actually Vishwamitra Rishi was such a great Rishi. He himself could have done samhara of the Rakshasas, isn't it? He could have only destroyed the Rakshasas. And why did he want Rama to come and help him? Firstly, because there was this other motive that all this jnana had to be given to Rama. And even more important, as they continue further on their journey, he was the means through which Rama was to go to Mithila and there had to be Sita Kalyana taking place. He had to be married to Sita. So that was one purpose. Second thing is that as Vishwamitra Rishi told to Dasharath Raja, when one is involved in a yajna, then that person who is doing the yajna, who's performing the yajna, should be always in a sattvic frame of mind. So if the Rakshasas appear at that point and he is involved in cursing those Rakshasas or doing something to defend himself and the yajna against the Rakshasas, then that action will take away from the sattvikata and therefore that yajna will not give the desired fruit. So that is the reason why he wanted Rama to come and protect the yajna. So once they reach Siddhashrama, the yajna preparations are made, and for 6 days and nights, the yajna has to go on non-stop. And for those 6 days and nights, Rama and Lakshmana constantly keep vigil. They are very alert and they thwart the attempts of all the Rakshasas. So many Rakshasas appear there to bring Vigna in the performance of the yajna. But all of that is destroyed. All those efforts are destroyed by Rama Lakshmana. And finally, on the 6th night, when this Maricha and Subahu attack with great force, then it is that Rama shows his prowess. His parakrama is proved. He hits one arrow at Maricha, and Maricha is thrown far away from this place. Now, this Siddhashrama is in the north of India, and and when the arrow is hit, then Rama throws him into the ocean, which is the Indian Ocean. So you can imagine how far that arrow of Rama carried Maricha and threw him into the ocean there. As for Subahu, Rama kills Subahu. He saves Maricha and throws him into the ocean far away, but he kills Subahu. Once this is done, then the yajna is successfully completed. And after that is over, then all the Rishi Munis there, along with Vishwamitra, they get ready. They say that we are going to visit Mithila Desha. And they give information. They say to Rama and Lakshmana, they cannot directly tell them that you come there. But what they do is they say that it is told that in Mithila Desha, King Janaka who is a great Rajarishi. There is one bow which has been kept there. It is the bow of Shiva. And as young princess, it may be very useful to you. You may be interested in coming and looking at that bow. And there are a lot of Vedic karmas, Vedic yajnas that are going on at all times. Rituals are going on because of that bow which is there. And it would be good of you to come to Mithila and take a look at that bow. So like that, they kind of tell a lot of things to build curiosity and interest in the minds of Rama and Lakshmana. So anyway, these boys, they have been told by their father that wherever Vishwamitra Rishi goes, you have to go with him. Whatever he tells, you have to follow. So when all these rishis start to go to Mithila, then Rama and Lakshmana also follow them and they also go along with them. So as they reach Mithila, on the very outskirts of the actual city, there is one very beautiful place where there is an ashram, but it is secluded. There is no activity at all there, and everything is silent, and there appears to be nobody inside that ashrama. So, as they enter, they come close to that place, then Rama asks Vishwamitra Rishi, he says, what is this place? Why is it so silent? And there's such a beautiful ashrama here, but it appears like there is nobody living here. What is it? And at that time, Vishwamitra Rishi is very happy and he tells Rama, oh Rama, one of the reasons why I brought you here, it is time for you to redeem the curse of this great woman called Ahalya. And Vishwamitra Rishi narrates the story of Ahalya, and after that, Rama enters into the ashrama. So, what is this story of Ahalya? We may have heard of this many times, right? So, actually, what happened is Ahalya was created by Lord Brahma, and she was very beautifully created. She was so beautiful that she was said to be even more beautiful than Urvashi. Urvashi was considered the most beautiful Apsara in Swarga. But then she got very proud of her beauty. So, in order to pull her down to size, Brahma created this Ahalya. And once he had created her, she was a small child. So there is no way that Brahma could take care of her. So he had left her in the care of Gautama Rishi in this ashrama. Now Gautama Rishi brought up that young girl, and once she grew of age, he brought her back to Brahma and handed her over and said, your daughter, you had left her in my care. I have brought her up well, and now I'm handing her back to you. Brahma was very pleased with the upbringing of Ahalya by Gautama Rishi. So he said that I will give her to you only in marriage, O Rishi. Let her be your wife. And the marriage is conducted between Ahalya and Gautama. So right from that time, ever since Ahalya was brought back as a young girl to Brahma, this Indra had an eye on her, and he was enamored of her beauty, and he felt that, oh, this most beautiful woman in the world, she is rightfully, I should be the one who should enjoy her. And why Brahma is giving her away to Gautama? He was angry at that. So anyway, that desire never left his mind. And one fine day, in order to fulfill his unholy desire, he devised a plan. And he reached the ashram. He kept watch, and he knew that every morning at around 3 o'clock in the morning, before the start of or around the start of the Brahma Muhurta, this Gautam Rishi goes to the river to have his daily bath, and he is away from some time. So one fine day, what he does is that at that time, when Gautama Rishi has left from the ashrama, Indra appears there. He takes on the guise of Gautama Rishi and he enters into the ashram, and he tells Ahalya that I want to have enjoyment with you. Let us have this union. I have been thirsting for it for quite a long time. Now, he has come in the form of Gautama. This Ahalya it is said she knew, she understood that it is actually not her husband Gautama Rishi, but it is Indra who has come in the form of Gautama Rishi. But it is said that she was so carried away, by the headiness of the moment. She was intoxicated with that feeling that, oh, the great Devendra, he himself is having this desire to enjoy me. And she got carried away with that passion and she gave in to that desire. And after that, immediately she realizes, after the act is over, she realizes that, oh, I have made a mistake. And then she feels bad. But then she is worried that now her husband will come back and Indra will be caught. So she tells Indra that, oh, you please escape soon before my husband comes back. And as he is going out, right at that moment, Gautam Rishi arrives there. He sees Indra, he sees Ahalya, he realizes with his Divya Drishti he can very well make out what has happened. So he curses Indra, and not happy with cursing Indra, he also curses Ahalya. And he curses her that you will become invisible to everybody. You had this thing to partake in this lustful act, so you will become invisible to everyone, and you have to stay like that in that invisible form, subsisting only on air and doing intense tapas. And finally, after many, many years, ages together, when Lord Sri Ramachandra comes as the son of Dasharatha, when Rama appears here, then he will redeem you from this curse. Till then, you have to be here, lying just like that, doing your tapas, invisible to everybody else's eyes. And giving that curse, he goes away to the Himalayas to do tapascharya. Now, this entire story is narrated by Vishwamitra Rishi to Rama. And he tells Rama that, oh Rama, please enter into the ashram and bless this lady Ahalya. She has suffered for so long already. And it is time now for you to remove this shapa from her, to do shapa vimochana, to redeem her curse. And so when once Rama enters the ashram, this Ahalya, who till then she has been invisible to everybody, she offers respects at the feet of Rama. And the minute she does that, she becomes visible. She gains back her normal form and she becomes visible to everybody's eyes. And she has a very effulgent, lustrous form. And she offers all respects to Rama. Then soon Gautam Rishi also arrives there. And together they give him all hospitality and all. And then the Vishwamitra, Rama, and Lakshmana move ahead on their journey towards Mithila. So, this is the story of Ahalya as it is told from Valmiki's viewpoint. Now, in the Kamba Ramayana, now some of you may have heard a version of this story where they say that this Ahalya was cursed by Gautama Rishi to become a stone, to turn into a stone. And where did that come from? That is from the Kamba Ramayana. Kamba Ramayana is the Ramayana which was composed by Kambar Alvar, who is one of the great poets and great spiritual poets from Tamil Nadu. So in that Tamil Kamba Ramayana, he has written this thing. So there are quite some differences between this Valmiki Ramayana and Kamba Ramayana when it comes to this Ahalya episode. Now in Valmiki's Ramayana, Rama sees this secluded ashrama. He asks Vishwamitra about it, and then Vishwamitra tells him the whole story. And once he goes inside, then Ahalya offers respects to him, and by touching the feet of Rama, she gets redemption from the curse. In Kamba Ramayana, what happens is that as they are walking by that ashrama, there is one stone which is lying there. As they come close to that, not even Rama's feet, but the dust particles from Rama's feet touch that stone. That stone turns into a woman, and Rama is surprised. And then he asks Vishwamitra, what is this? Why did this stone turn into a woman? And then Vishwamitra Rishi explains the whole backstory to Rama. That is what is the difference in Kamba Ramayana. Now, in Valmiki Ramayana, the curse was that Ahalya should become invisible to the world. He does not curse, Gautam Rishi does not curse her to become a stone. He just says you will become invisible to the world and you have to live only on air and you have to do intense tapas. Whereas in Kamba Ramayana, it is told that Gautam Rishi cursed Ahalya to become a stone, right? And in Valmiki's Ramayana, Gautam Rishi curses her first, and she does not say anything in her, to justify herself, or she does not beg for forgiveness. But Gautam Rishi himself tells her that what is the solution for that curse. that you have to be like this, and after so many ages, then Rama will come. He tells her that on his own. Whereas in Kamba Ramayana, it is told that once she is cursed to become a stone, then Ahalya begs for forgiveness. She tells Gautama Rishi that I have made a mistake, but you are such a great soul, so you have to forgive me for my sins. And please tell me what is the solution. Please give some, way to overcome this curse. And then Gautama relents and he says that Rama will come and forgive you, and that time you will turn back into a human being, right? Now, so in Valmiki Ramayana, when Rama's feet, Ahalya touches the feet of Rama, then she gets back her normal form. But in Kamba Ramayana, Kambar says this Rama is so much of, see, right then he is not even yet married to Sita, right? But he is having such great control of mind, and he is that Eka Patni Vrata, that quality is there from the beginning itself. So his feet also don't touch another woman, whatever form she may be in. It is the dust particles from his feet which touch the stone, and that stone comes back to human form. So these are some of the differences between Valmiki and Kambar when it comes to this entire episode. However, what is significant is that in both cases, Valmiki as well as Kamba Ramayana, there is no kind of justification. Like there are some other versions where the authors tell that this Ahalya did not realize that it was Indra who had come in the guise of her husband, right? But in both Valmiki and Kamba Ramayana, they very clearly state that she realizes because she is a great jnani. She is, in fact, if you've heard that shloka where the Pancha Kanyas are talked about, they are said to be the supreme Pativratas. So in that we say Ahalya, Draupadi, Tara, Mandodari, Sita, like that we are telling. So in that, Ahalya's is the first name. So she is considered as such a great woman. So definitely she had the jnana. She was able to make out that it was Indra who came and it was not her husband. But she gets carried away by that one moment of passion. And that is why she makes that mistake. So that is very clearly told in both these Valmiki as well as Kamba Ramayana. Saying that she did not know it was Indra is in some other versions, right? Okay. So today we've talked about two things. One is about how Maricha and Subahu were killed. I mean, Maricha was sent away and Subahu was killed. And then we talked about how Ahalya Shapa Vimochana took place. So, what are some of the things we can learn from this episode? These two things. So, here the Acharyas explain that we talked about how Tataka was there, and Tataka's two sons were Maricha and Subahu. So, it is told that Tataka represents avidya. Avidya means ignorance. That is, we actually, any person who has taken this human form, we think of ourselves in terms of this body. But actually, in reality, we are not the body, we are the soul. So, this not realizing this, thinking of oneself as the body, not realizing that when I say I, that I refers to the Jivatma, to the soul. That ignorance is called as avidya. So Tataka represents that avidya. And her two sons, Maricha and Subahu, they represent Kama and Krodha. So whenever there is avidya, because of that, there will be Kama and Krodha. So Kama and Krodha are arising from, they are born out of avidya. Similarly, you can the acharyas also say that Maricha and Subahu, they indicate ahankara and mamakara. Ahankara means the sense of ego, that I am the doer. And mamakara means that this is mama, this belongs to me, this is mine. That sense of possessiveness about things, that is called mamakara. So this ahankara and mamakara are equated to Maricha and Subahu. So what we learn from this story where Tataka was killed, Subahu was killed, Maricha was also put into a very bad shape, that if avidya, kama, krodha, ahankara, mamakara, all these have to be destroyed, then it is only by the grace of the Lord that they can be destroyed. There is nothing else that anybody can do. We can put our efforts to do adhyatmic sadhana, but ultimately the result, whether our avidya is destroyed, our kama, krodha, ahankara, mamakara go away, that depends on attaining the grace of the Lord. If the Lord is pleased by us and our efforts, then in 1 second He can destroy all these things for us. Right? Okay. Next, we move on to what we can learn from the story of Ahalya. Now, here, when we talk of the fact that Ahalya realized that It was Indra, but she felt very strong in that moment, because she thought that I'm so beautiful that although he is Devendra himself, he wants to enjoy me. So she got carried away. That pride which came out of realizing that I am so beautiful, that I have hold over this greatest person who is the Devadi Deva, right? So that greatest Deva, the Raja of all the Devatas, he is having desire for me. That ahankara led to wrong decision. So we must always be careful that we don't get carried away when we have something. We have either we are beautiful, or we have intelligence, or we have a good family background, we have good status in society, right? All these, or we have good lot of knowledge. Then all these things, it is told that they can cause a person to get carried away. They make people arrogant if we are not careful. And when we get carried away with that arrogance, then it makes us to take wrong decisions. So it is important for us not to get carried away like that. We should give up that ahankara. Um, in the Bhaja Govindam, there is one shloka where Adi Shankaracharya has told, Ma kuru dhana jana yauvana garbam, harati nimeshat kalas sarvam, mayamidamidam akhilam buddhva, brahma padam tvam pravisha viditva. So what he's saying is, don't do ma kuru, don't have ego or pride about what all? Dhana, jana, yauvana. Don't have garva of all these things. And to that we can add jnana also, because many times these are the things that people are proud of. Their knowledge, their wealth, their belongings, their status, their beauty, right? All these things people feel proud of. We must not, because those can disappear within the fraction of a second. What is important is having the wealth of love for the Lord. That is the biggest thing. And that is what we must aspire for. So let us not get carried away by whatever uh, good qualities or good things we possess, by our assets. And always we must be alert and use our power of discrimination. Especially in situations when we are likely to get excited and carried away, we must become even more alert and think for a minute before we take some decision. Like for example, Ahalya could have thought that if you go by those versions, where they say that she did not realize it was Indra, and she thought it was her husband. She should have thought, isn't it, that every day when my husband goes to the river to have bath, he comes back only after half an hour or 45 minutes, and today it appears as if he's come back after just 5 minutes. She should have realized that. She should have used her viveka there, right? So that is what we can learn. And if we do something wrong, then definitely there is going to be a negative outcome for that. It may come immediately, it may come later, it may come in this janma, it may come in some other janma, but whatever karma is done, there is definitely some phala which is going to come. And if we do wrong deeds, then wrong outcomes are definitely going to be there from that. Then we look at one more aspect, this turning into a stone, right? What it indicates, that stone is something which is inanimate, right? It is a nirjiva vastu. So that indicates a withdrawal of the senses. Even when when Gautama Rishi said you will become invisible, that means you will not be visible to others. So the senses, everything would have got contracted within. And this is a good way to deal with any kind of crisis. Whenever there is some crisis that attacks us, when we are in a difficult situation, then if we are able to withdraw our senses, if we are able to stop connecting with the outside world, we become like a stone. We go look inwards, we stay to ourselves, and we introspect. Then there is a great chance that we will be able to see what we did wrong, and we will be able to make efforts to change our wrong behavior. So that is another lesson we can learn from here. Now, in the Tulsi Ramcharitmanas, which is composed by Saint Tulsidas, there is one one verse which appears where it is told from Ahalya's point of view. What was her viewpoint about the shapa that she got from Gautam Rishi? So in that she says, Muni Shrap jo dina ati bhal कीना parama anugrah मैं माना देखूं भरी लोचन हरि भव मोचन iha labha sankara jana. So she says that when this Muni, when this Gautam Rishi gave me this Shrapa, it is actually he's done bhala to me, he's done good to me. And it is, I think, मैं माना, I think it is Parama Anugraha. I think it's the most supreme blessing that I could have got. Why? Why is she saying that? Because with my with my entire eyes, with my full um, intensity, I was able to look at the form of Hari. If I had not been in that stone form, if I had not been cursed to be redeemed by the Lord, then I would not have got this benefit. Because I was cursed, because I became a stone and I lay there, I got this opportunity to have the Divya Darshan of the Lord Himself. That is her attitude. So from that also we can learn that many times we think that something has gone wrong for us, and we think that it is crisis and it is only negative. But even in the most negative of things, if we have the right attitude, we can find something that is there of benefit to us, and we can learn from that and go on further on our journey. If we are ready to introspect and find the learning point, find the important concept that we have to learn out of that wrong bad situation also, then we can turn the negative into a positive situation, and that will be beneficial for us to grow in our journey. So with that, we have completed whatever we wanted to talk for today. Let us offer kritagnyata. Let us pray that God will bless us to be able to understand these things, and they will bless Guru, and Sri Rama will bless us to be able to go ahead on our Adhyatmik sadhana. Mangalam Kosalendraya Mahaniya Gunabdaye Chakravarti Tanujaya Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam Veda Vedanta Vedyaya Meghashyamalamurtaye Pumsam Mohana Rupaya Punyashlokaya Mangalam Pitrabhaktaya Satatam Bhratrabhih Saha Sitaya Nanditakhilalokaaya Ramabhadraya Mangalam Srimate Raghuviraya सेतुलङ्घितसिन्धवे जितराक्षसराजाय रणधीराय मङ्गलम् मङ्गलाशासनपरैर्मदाचार्यपुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्यैः सत्कृतायास्तु मङ्गलम्. Thank you everybody, and we'll meet again tomorrow with the next topic. Namaskar.